Greetings, class. So, you might ask, what the hell has happened to you, Anthony? Where have you been, for like the past month or so? Well, to be honest, a lot of things. Since I've moved back to my home. Yes, I'm now recording this from my home here in Odessa, Ukraine. The second thing is that school started. I am a ninth grader, and geez, ninth graders do not get any time to react to the work that they can do, and they just don't get any opportunity to live, and don't get almost any free time. The only time I could even get to properly live is on the weekends, and even then, that's stretching it. And it's been quite busy as of recently. No, that's probably the illustration. Anyways, yeah, I've been very busy, very organized, and I had a lot of other issues that I had to deal with. But we're back, and we're now gonna have a different upload schedule. As you know, we plan to have 2 times a week, once in every 2 days, an upload. However, now, since we're so busy, we're gonna have an upload as follows: one on Friday and one on Sunday. So 2 uploads a week. So expect that to be roughly about 5:30. Anyways, but we're back, and welcome back to Redstone School, my fellow students. Today, we're going to be beginning the second chapter of the course, being Redstone Clocks. Now, Redstone Clocks is going to be our topic, sorry. We're being circuits, where we're going to be finally talking about different redstone circuits that you can construct thanks to all the redstone components that we discussed in the first lesson. But today's topic is redstone clocks. Now, first of all, what is defined as a redstone clock? A redstone clock is defined as a contraption that creates continuous pulses that all make a certain thing and trigger over and over. Basically, a continued loop of pulses, and they can be in speed and size. So, let's get on to. Today's is gonna be a bit shorter than usual, but let's begin. The first one is probably the most basic of redstone clocks, being the repeater clock. Now, well, as you can see, it's very easy to build. All you need is a 3x2 area of land. Just like that. You need to place 2 redstone like that, and 2 repeaters running into each other, both set to 4 ticks. If you don't know what ticks are, then go watch the first episode, which came out a while back, so you can get an explanation on what ticks are. But we're not talking about those today. Today, we're talking about clocks. Anyways, so, you may say, well, this clock doesn't really look like it's giving off any pulse. Well, as you saw in the beginning, it was powered, but it broke, because it can kind of break. But well, if we put a lever, give it a short powering, then you see we have created a pulse cycle. And we can take that pulse cycle and use it to power certain things, like pistons, for example. As you can see, it's powering that piston on and off in a continuous cycle. Open, close, open, close, open, close. And yeah, this is basically what it is. The only problem that you have with this clock to build is that while it's simple, simplicity can also come with its issues, because if by any means any other source for some reason powers it, then the clock gets locked, and there's no way to empower it unless you break it. But yeah, this is the repeater clock. Now let's move on to something that actually I was a bit of an idiot last time, that being the comparator clock. Now, the comparator clock. Now, it actually is meant to look like this when I originally did something that looked like that. I did mention in the video that was a bit of an idiot. As you can see, this clock is really simple to build. All you need is a 2x2 area. You need a comparator on either this or this side. Let's go turn it on like that. And then loop the redstone. And then if we give it a power source, it will then start flickering. Now, this is a more compact and faster version of the repeated clock. If this is what things want to be really fast. Now, on the PC version, it's much faster than this. This is because on Pocket Edition it's a little bit limited, and this is how loading kind of works. So yeah, this is the comparison clock for you. Very simple, very easy to create, and good for fast contraptions. Now let's move on to something more usable, and sorry for the loud noise, being the torch clock. Now, how does the torch clock actually work? Now, the torch clock works actually pretty simply. All you need is a 1x2 area. You need a block up above. You need a contraption block, like a piston. Just make sure it faces the right way. Or a dropper, those work as well. Or dispenser, it doesn't really matter. And you need a redstone torch on the back, and then you can place redstone on top. And as you can see, it will work. However, should be noted is that singular ones kind of sometimes break if needed, so you'll have to reignite them at times, like this. Yeah, as you can see, they kind of like burn out. How do you counteract this? Well, it's actually really simple. Just place 2 of them. By placing 2, you will stop them from extinguishing. However, that's the best used for droppers and dispensers to an extent. Because, well, as you can see, as we saw with pistons, it doesn't really work with pistons since the pulse is just too quick for them to react. We shall take everything out before it gets too noisy. And this is the most used for something known as bread makers. And as you can see, they can also be and they can be used for arrow cannons as well. This works with wire charges too. As you can see, arrows work just as fine. Yeah. Or we can use them for something that looks like that is known as a bread maker. If we switch it on, as you can see, it will start empowered by bone meal. And if we just grab out some seeds, let's say regular wheat seeds, we can start growing them, and they'll grow like reeds. Now, if you want to know how you fully make a bread maker, then welcome in the future. But for now, that's the basic function of this clock. It's for builds that require very fast pulses. Next, moving on to what perhaps could be the simplest clock. Let me just turn off the torch clock because it's probably getting very noisy. But next we have what is known as a hopper clock. And this is essentially the simplified version of the repeater and comparator clock. Except it's a little slower, and how it works is that you have two hoppers running into each other, and they have one of a certain items cycling in between each other and constantly giving off pulses one after another. This is useful for builds that require certain specified timing, and as you can see, it doesn't really have to be a diamond. It can be basically anything, but I just used diamonds just because they're super random. But you will see more uses as we get further into the course. But moving on, now we have something a bit more interesting. This is personally my idea, and this is what I like to call the railcar clock. Now, this slime here is not for any special reason, he's just there. But how does this work? It works in the following way. A lag spike. We've got... Actually, let me just go ahead and... Yeah, now we're rocking. Anyways, as you can see, we got a set of rails that is cycling right around, and we have a minecart that's going around. Now, it doesn't have to be a regular minecart, it can be any, but as you can see, we can just run a line of pulse that will constantly trigger, and this is actually a clock that you can fully time, and this can be as big as you want. This is probably the wackiest of the clocks, is probably the most precise. As you can see, we've set it to this kind of pace. However, you can set it to be either faster or slower. Just make sure not to make it too small, because if you make it too small, it will actually be just a consistent pulse. But yeah, this is my personal idea, and I think I did a pretty good job of making a precise clock, because I never really see anyone use this, and I think it's awesome. But next, let's move on to something that is actually something that you might have sometimes caused by accident. And this is what I like to call the observer clock. Now, how do we work this? Now, the way we work this clock is that if we update this observer, but it's breaking this redstone block, as you can see, the piston will start triggering off and off, on and off, and it will constantly update itself, running into a pulse. And this is possibly the fastest clock, at least in Pocket Edition. This is the fastest pulse you can get. This is the fastest possible. I mean, the comparator clock that we've discussed earlier is probably the fastest, but at the same time, this is the clock that's probably the quickest. And the way we switch it off is that if we can break the cycle, then it will just simply stop. Just make sure you replace the part that you broke. Yeah, there we go. And you probably made this sometimes by accident when you try to play something except the observer got updated by the piston, and yeah, you get the idea. You probably made this sometimes in your redstone days. But now, let's move on to something that I think perhaps is the slowest, yet the most accurate of clocks. The hopper timer. Now, how the hell does this thing work? As you saw in the demonstration, we have a set of 5 64 stacked items that run back and forth through the system, and whenever one of the hoppers fully fills, a shift positions, and you can use this to your advantage by making certain time relations. Now, again, this is basically a slightly smaller, precise clock. Yet, this is probably the one that, while you probably would use, because There's really no need to make a big lasting strings or short lasting pulses that this thing can do. Can't do. Oh, sorry if you didn't hear it. But anyways, but the thing is that this thing actually has a limit. Because you can only shove 5 stacks of a certain item. So that means that you have maximally 10 stacks of delay with, for example, this kind of setup that we have. So if you, I would still stick to the rail tracks if you wish more accurate preciseness and less limits, but this thing is more or less there to give you extra room for experimentation and compactness and resource wise. And this is basically going to wrap up our video on redstone clocks. I know that there's not too many things that there's talk about, and we're gonna finish the video by, as you can see, this clock was running, but now it stopped looping. This can sometimes happen, but anyways, as you can see, there wasn't much to talk about today, but that's because the circuit part isn't as complex as the components part. But trust me, there is way more circuits than just clocks. Anyways, this is going to do it for today's Minecraft video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, hit that like, I'll appreciate it. And I'll see you guys on Sunday next time. Peace out.